Cheryl from Garden in the Burrow here. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite groups of plants, which is Sedum. So Sedum is highly recognizable to most New England gardeners as these very fleshy leaves and pinkish or reddish flowers that bloom in the fall. Most time that's what people around here think of when they think of Sedum, but Sedum is actually a very large group of plants and they are actually all not called Sedum anymore. So recently, Sedum, the genus, has undergone a subdivision and it's now in 5 subgenera. And we're not going to talk about that today. It's not going to be a science lesson in any way, but those groupings of plants now accurately put the plants in with the things they are most closely related to. So for instance, Sedum joy, that's now in Hylotelephium. And there are, I think, 3 others that are hardy in New England of the new genus names. So I will put all of this in the description box so you can see all the new names. But I will tell you that in most nurseries and in most casual conversation, people are going to refer to these plants as Sedum, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about Sedum. So I'm holding in my hand this book, which is a monograph, and a monograph is a book about one subject, and the subject of this one is Sedum. And I use this book quite a bit for reference. If you are a winter reader, this is a good one to put on your list for those days when it's snowy but you want to think about the garden. And one of the great things that I like to point out to people about this plant is most people think of Sedum as a plant for hot, dry gardens in the full sun. And every one of these pink post-it notes in this book is attached to a page that talks about a Sedum that's actually better in part shade or shady conditions. So there are Sedums for all sorts of conditions in your garden. Right now I am standing in a shadier spot of my garden. You'll see behind me a limelight hydrangea, and you'll see how small these flowers are, and that's because it's getting almost no sun. We're standing in the shade of a red maple tree, so it has flowers, but they're just tiny. The other limelights in my garden are actually, a foot long, and these are just starting to come into bloom, and they'll stay very small. But look how happy this Sedum is here. And it's growing in this half whiskey barrel, and it's been in here for over 15 years. It gets no supplemental water from me. It just happily lives in here, and the only time I ever come out here is to divide it so I can move some of it to other parts of the garden if I need a filler plant. Up here too, it's safe from the rabbits. That's the only issue with this one that I have in the garden at all, is that rabbits will eat it. But other than that, it's pretty happy in both sun and shade. It will bloom in both. And you can see the little morning glory that's trying to get going here and is struggling because of the shade as well. But this is this is an OG plant, been around for ages and ages, but there are so many new varieties now. And I hope that by the end of this, you'll have a better appreciation for this plant and want to have many, many more in your garden. We're looking at yet another container that has Sedum as its primary resident. And this one, I believe, is called Fire Glow or Ruby Glow. There might actually be more than one Sedum growing in here. Again, this is a container that has always had Sedum cascading down it. I think it's just so beautiful. And I add little bits of different Sedums so you can see the reddish Fire Glow. And there's actually a little sprig of Hab Grade in here, which is more of a border Sedum. I don't actually know why I put that in there. And then this Sedum we're going to talk about in a second, growing on the side here, the green-leafed one, is Dr. John Creech, and I'm going to talk about that when I bring you to a bigger stand of it, because I use that one extensively in the garden. But this is the one I wanted to show you over here, growing in this container. Again, perennial, lives in this container, never comes out, stays out during the winter. The container is made of cement. Right now it has a transplanted stackies in front of it that's being protected until it roots in, but it's a beautiful container too, and the Sedum in it is just adds so much to it. I'm going to show you one more area that I use Dr. John Creech as a ground cover, and we are underneath a birch tree. And if you look in there, you can see ferns and a juga. And this bed just got widened. So all this is just getting planted now with ferns and heucheras and hostas. So it's all just little baby divisions over here. But this sedum also is going to help fill and cover the ground as a mulch. And you can see we are in the shade. So this is a beautiful, beautiful ground cover. Super easy to take care of. And I will tell you that sometimes grass, we go right next to the lawn, and sometimes grass will get into this bed, but because this plant is so easy to pick up and just pull the grass out of and put it right back in the ground, it never even blinks. I don't mind it happening because it's nothing to even get upset about because it's so easy to fix. And this is another area that doesn't get irrigated all too much either because it's pretty far from the rest of our gardens. And this is such a useful and beautiful ground cover. While we're talking about sedums that I use as ground cover, I'm going to come in here and see this ground cover in here. Oh, I hear hummingbirds fighting right above my head. This is a Russian stonecrop. I forgot to say that stonecrop was another name, that common name people use for sedum. So this is called Russian stonecrop, and I'll put its Latin name on the screen. And this I use quite frequently because it's adaptable to the driest of the dry conditions and also sun, shade. I'll show you some growing in a shady location, but it's basically the front of the border here. Most of it is that Russian stonecrop. Easy to lift and divide, easy to add more of wherever you need it. And I'll walk over and show you where I use it besides the ground cover on the side of the shed. So on the door of my shed is this living wreath. And every year in the spring, this wreath just overwinters on the ground outside. And I'll just walk around and pick up some sedum to fill in any places that didn't make the winter. And I'll just tuck them in. This gets watered on the ground. So I put a trash can lid down and I water it that way. And when it's down on the ground, it becomes rabbit food sometimes. So you can see a little hole there, and you can see that there was a sedum there that got gnawed off. But you'll see that, oops, there's a leaf in there, that the sedum, the Russian stonecrop, is doing fantastically well in there. There's also some Dr. John Creech in there. This is a Silene that seeded itself in there, and there's a geranium in there as well. And on this side, Angelina, that I think was what was in this little section here. That's a sedum called Angelina, which has beautiful chartreuse foliage, but that one can be a rabbit magnet, and that might have been what got chewed when it was put on the ground, but it'll fill back in. But sedum in a living wreath, fantastic, because you don't have to worry about watering too much. I take this down and give it a soak maybe once, either every week if it's really hot or every other week in the summertime. And it does fantastically well without too much attention. And it overwinters just on the ground. I just drop it right underneath where it's hanging right now and let it overwinter in the ground there. All right, we have thankfully gotten out of the sun because boy, it is brutal out today. And this is another area that I grow Russian stonecrop in, down these rocks that are forming the edge of the bed where one of my apple trees is. This is very shady all the time, and this is a great plant for shady ground cover. It goes all the way down. I'm not going to pan all the way down there because we'll be back out. It goes right back out into the sun. So it transitions from a really shady area to a really sunny area. And over here, there are actually quite a number of leaves on the ground already. I'll come in a little bit because how dry it is. the apple tree has been dropping some leaves, but you can still see all the sedum that's forming the ground cover. Easy just to rake those leaves out of there. The plant doesn't care. Shade. You can see hydrangeas under the apple tree. That's dropping its leaves because how dry it is. Great shady ground cover. Just to show you how resilient this plant is. So these two sedum were growing in a place that was just not for them. They were unhappy. They were in the dog's path. They kept getting broken, and then they would grow back, and one of them was in almost 100% full shade. And still they were both budded up. And I picked them up out of the ground about a week and a half ago and moved them, and they're doing so beautifully, like it never even happened. I will say though that I did the same over here for this Hab Gray, and it's still alive, but a piece of it got broken off. I didn't really mind it so much. This is one of my, I'm going to say, least favorite ones. I don't mind the leaf color, but I don't find that it stays upright very well. So it kind of sprawls, but it's too long to sprawl. And I don't care for the flowers. They're going to be like a beigey yellow. So look, we found one I don't really like, Hab Gray. So as we walk into the rock garden, there are a lot of sedum growing in here. We'll just look at a few. This one is Vera Jameson, growing again in a container, stays out all winter long. Beautiful purple foliage. Oh, I was cleaning up some thyme there. I haven't put that in the compost. Another container that has just divisions from 3 different sedum that were growing in the garden. One a lower. I'm not sure which one that is. I'd have to look to see which one that got divided off of. And I would guess that's an autumn joy, and that's probably off Vera. In that container. That never gets watered. This is rabbit land over here because of these shrubs. That's why this yucca is recovering in there. All right, so we'll come around, and here's where we have a lot of them growing as ground cover, and that's Sedum matrona growing there in front of the variegated ajuga. I love that color together. I think that's such a beautiful combination. And this is about to bloom. And then we have some more of the fire glow in here. And if you look on the ground, try and find a spot where we can see it pretty good. You'll see so much of that sedum Dr. John Creech making up the bulk of the ground cover in here. And also some sedum album that I just let crop up wherever it crops up, in and around the stepping stones. I think it's so sweet. But I want to talk about this one, which is, to me, one of the most useful. It spreads into a beautiful low mat. It's got this beautiful bright color to it. It blooms bright pink, and it's so easy to divide. I'm not sure what's behind there. That's Picolette or Hab Gray growing right here. And there's Dr. John Creech again. This is a weed I need to take out of here. It's a euphorbia that keeps cropping up. This one actually might be one called blueberry something because it's really tiny. It's only maybe 2 or 3 inches tall. Blueberry dazzle, something like that. A rabbit jumping over, breaking that. Another container, another sedum. This container was our vessel sink in our master bath, and it was made of stone. And when we redid our bathroom, when we gutted it, I took the sink and repurposed it into a planter. And what's growing in it is an oldie but goodie sedum called dragon's blood. And this is the non-improved version of the fire glow. So this dragon's blood doesn't have any of that orangey red. It's just the straight red edge on the green. Still a beautiful, beautiful sedum growing in a very dry area of the garden with Mr. Gnome. Beautiful. This is without a doubt one of the driest areas of this whole entire garden, which is saying a lot because it's dry here. And you can see I use a lot of the Russian stonecrop. You can see it all in here, along with weeds, but you know, just working its way around wherever it wants to pop up. And then, again, I'm not sure which tall sedum this one is until it blooms, but this container lives over here, never goes inside, never gets watered. And, you know, it's such an easy plant to just tuck in anywhere life is hard. And it's growing next to my firelight hydrangea, which just started to color up a little bit in the last couple days. So that's where that container is, where it is dry, 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 dry. In the side of this container is Sedum Angelina, another great container growing plant. There's also some Dr. John Creech in this one. And these just make a great base for your containers for whatever other plant you put in there. This helps cover the soil on the bottom. They don't take too much water. And if you plant something that highlights the color, it looks fantastic. That's Sedum Angelina. All right, now we're out on my front walkway, and there's a little rock edged bed here. And there are a number of sedum growing in here as ground covers. I'm just going to highlight a few. This one, I'm going to look up its name and put it on the screen because I don't know offhand, but it's just a smaller, it looks like Matrona, but it's smaller. It's a smaller mounding type. It's about to bloom. This one might be Ruby Glow, but I'm going to look it up just to make sure. But there's also in here some blue spruce, which is grown a lot as a ground cover. And there's some of that growing here. Very, very dry spot in the garden. Some really red dragon's blood. And I think that's from all the sun exposure here. In that little, that's being protected because of the clematis inside there. And then this, I'm going to give you a full view of this container. And this sedum lives in here permanently. It's been in here for a number of years. It's called October Daphne. And I'm going to do a close-up of it, but I'm going to talk about it when I get to another container that has it where it's a little shadier, so I don't have to stand out here in the sun. But look at the red on the edge of this. And again, we'll do a more detailed sort of look at this one when I get to the other garden. We're still on my front walkway, and there's two containers that flank my front door here, and I just gave them a big haircut. They are blue spruce, which is again a low growing, usually is a ground cover this plant is grown. But I struggle. These containers are so tiny. I love the look of them, and I love the top piece that I added a few years ago, and I've tried to grow a bunch of different things in them. But seriously, in an August heat, these things will need to be watered 2 or 3 times a day, and I just don't have the time or the inclination to do that. So I decided to try growing blue spruce sedum in here, and it was great. They have really long bloom stalks, yellow flowers on probably 18-inch stalks. The bees love them, and they just finished blooming, and I just cut them off. And now this sedum is going to have to rebound a little bit. But while I was cutting them off, I did knock a few pieces off of the sedum itself. And all I'm going to do with these is let them sit for a day to callus. So I just won't do anything. I'll just leave them here sitting on the stairs for a day. And then tomorrow I'll put them in potting soil, and they'll root up and make an entire new blue spruce sedum in another container. And that's the foliage of that one. And the flower stalks, well, some of them are still on the ground here. They're a bright, bright yellowy color, and they're really long. So that's what I just cut off of this sedum. Okay, as promised, we're over here. We're going to talk about this sedum, which could very well be my very favorite. And I'm going to put its Latin name in the corner here. And this is called Sedum October Daphne. And this sedum has a lot to recommend it. It is obviously very easy to grow because it's a sedum. As long as it has good drainage, it's a great container plant. Has these beautiful, beautiful blue fleshy leaves, and they have an amazing red tint to the edges that is more prominent in the sun. And it's about to flower, these pinkish flowers. Hi, Mr. Frog. See how happy Mr. Frog is to be next to this sedum? And it cascades down if you grow it in a container, or it will grow out as a mounding plant for like the front of the border if you grow it in the garden. I love it as a container plant. This one has been in this container for a number of years, and I'll sort of come up and show you a little bit the rest of the container. It's a big container in our pool area. It's always filled with all sorts of annuals, and you can see that it is right now too. And it stays out here year round. It doesn't come in. And this sedum is in what I call the back of the container, I guess, because it's right up against the post and you don't really see it except from this vantage point that we are right here where the frog is. And as soon as the weather gets cooler, this sedum is going to turn the most brilliant color. It's almost indescribable. It's got an orange tint to the whole leaf, very orangey red around the edges. It's just amazing. I don't have a picture of it. I'll come back and take some more video in October, but if you Google this and its fall color, you see how amazing it is. So this container is going to get spun around. So this sedum will actually be the front piece and the star of this container when all these annuals get ripped out late in the season. So we'll just turn this container around. I might leave the geranium, and the rest of the annuals will come out, and there'll be fall interest plants in here, and then evergreen in the winter. I am going to say, as we're talking about, and I'll sort of pan around so you can see how this is growing, and you don't even notice it in the back of this container when you're just in our pool area, because it's in the back. There it is. And make sure with your containers when you're growing something that needs good drainage that the holes in the bottom, the drainage holes in the bottom, don't get clogged up. So it's a good idea once a year to tip the container, make sure that roots or anything else hasn't gotten in where it's blocking the drainage holes that you have, or even add another couple drainage holes, and you'll have no problem overwintering your containers if you do that. This is even though it's dry here, and I keep saying over and over again how dry it is, it has been a dry end of summer. We had a very, very wet spring, and we always have very, very wet winters. We get quite a bit of snow and a large snow cover, a deep snow cover, usually every winter. So these plants, it's not like they're not being exposed to water at all. We don't live in Arizona, we live in New England. So they are getting quite a bit of water. They just have good drainage. They're not in clay soil or heavy soil. They're in sandy soil for the most part, and they are outside of most of our irrigation, but the ones that are always fine. We could have rain all summer and they'd be fine as long as they have some drainage. So if you ever have problems with root rot on any of your sedums, check your drainage holes if they're in containers. And if they're in the ground, just give them a little bit of sand or gravel to help with the drainage if that ever becomes an issue. We are in a little garden that sits right outside our pool area. And this is a garden that is in the process of being completely sort of reworked. And so there's a lot that's going to change in here. One of the things that I'm hoping is going to happen is this little red twig dogwood is going to fill out and match. There's one already that's a good size on the opposite side of this garden. And then even though this big blue stem, this andropogon in the back, is going to move, right now it's being paired with a sedum that's in an antique coal bucket. And this sedum is called Firecracker. And it's a relatively new introduction. Trying to get the sun on it so you can see how beautiful it is. How much blue on the new center foliage when it first comes out, and then it turns this beautiful, beautiful, glossy red color. It's beautiful. It's a mounding variety. It's called Firecracker. And you can see how it's picking up on the reddish stems in the big blue stem. It's sitting right in front of it. And this mounding variety, I find in this garden better to be grown in containers where it can kind of come down over the edge. How beautiful that is. So I actually have 2 of these plants, and I'm going to, if that dahlia is not blooming yet, I'm going to pan over to where the other one is. So the other one is growing in this hypertufa. I make my own hypertufa pots, and this one was made with a basket, and it's growing in here. And again, you can see how absolutely stunning this foliage is. And I'm actually trying to keep this one under control. It would be covering this whole pot. So I'm going to make it its own pot as soon as I get around to making some more hypertufa. I already have the basket. I just need to make it. Because what I'm trying to really grow in this pot and what I made it for was this little clematis that's called Ocraluca, which is just a small little mounding herbaceous type. Doesn't get very big. So I wanted it to live in this pot, but this sedum, you can see how it's filling out. So I'm going to leave the sedum. I might leave the sedum in this one and make a new one for the clematis. But I also tucked in here some blue spruce sedum, which is coming up in there. And it's actually on this side, even though it hasn't filled out all that much. But I think the 2 paired together, I'm going to try and get where you can see the blue on both, is just beautiful. Right next to them is a cloud form, and this is a mounding sedum that only gets to be maybe 6 inches tall tops, and it forms this beautiful little cloud. And actually that is what this is called, soft cloud, and it's a little mounding type. It looks sort of like the tall herbaceous border ones, except for its stature. It's very small. And this has been living in this container for I don't even know how many years. And it was down in the area of the garden where nobody could really see it. It was on a pathway. And when it bloomed, and every time I walked by it, I thought, wow, I should really move that to a more prominent position. So this year I did, and I moved it up here. And while I was moving it, I took a division of it, and that's what's living in this container, along with a taller one in the back.
that is just starting to open, and it looks like this one might be one of the ones that's not autumn joy, but maybe autumn charm, or um, it might actually, I'll have to wait till it starts blooming, but it looks like the flower color is different. So that is there. And I also took one more little piece of it and put it in that little container right there. And it's doing very well in there too, and it's about to bloom. So I'll back out so you can see this whole area. Oh, and also, my favorite, Dr. John Creech, in some of the other little hypertufas. And I did take a division of one of the border ones. Again, can't remember which one. And some blue spruce that will hopefully fill out in the bottom of this container, where I usually grow some type of annual. And this year it's a Bishop Series dahlia, which is red. And there's other dahlias right in here too. I would have to pull their tag out. Let me see if I can. I'll let you look at flowers while I look for their tag, which I don't see. I'll write them in the description. And they're growing right next to a stand of Rudbeckia, Lanceneata, Hortensia, something. I don't know. It's called Golden Glows. It's a very old-fashioned plant that blooms late in the season. Very, very tall. It is over my head. Anyway, that's this little, oops, I almost fell off the stair there. That's this little display right here. And what's in here was sweet peas. You can see that they're going to seed, which is why I haven't ripped them out yet until I have the seeds. And then morning glories. And our little branches structure they're growing on is actually made of willow. So I have to get in here and trim out the pieces that are sort of coming off the side. But that's what's there. You can see all the sedum there. Go this way and you can see the one next to the big blue stem. So that's firecracker. And soft cloud. Another really good use of sedum I find are for just scattered containers that are just sort of, I'm going to call them filler. So in this little garden that is exactly behind where I was talking about sedum firecracker, the purple variety and the big blue stem, that is right behind there. Oh, look at our pool chair. Sorry, it's kind of messy here. I should probably move that. We had a party this weekend, and sea towels. It's not always all great around here. I haven't finished cleaning up from having people over this weekend because it's been so hot. But anyway, in this little garden, there are 4 containers that just live out here permanently, because this garden is like a garden of stars. So there's one thing every season. In the springtime, it's this peony, and actually right above it is Rosa glauca. And the peony sort of grows into Rosa glauca. They both bloom pink, and that's sort of the star of this garden in the early part of the season. And then we have in June this rose called Aloha, which is blooming again now. You can see there's buds on it, and it's blooming now. Ready? And it blooms again now. And then we have this salvia that just is a blooming machine and just keeps going and going and going on the corner. And there are a few other things scattered in the back here that you see from different parts of the garden. The little white salvia, there's a mum that rabbits keep eating, and some dahlias back there, and of course the clematis that's gone by. But so the sort of superstars of this garden, take center stage. And in the center, because the foliage always looks so fantastic, the sedum, this is most likely autumn joy in here. Autumn joy. I'm not sure what variety this little purple one is. It might be Vera Jameson. I'm not sure. And there's another little purple one, and another Dr. John Creech. in this hypertufa. These need nothing all season, and you just have this beautiful foliage that takes up some space in the garden. If these containers had annuals in them, and there are many containers of annuals in this pool area, they would need fertilizing and deadheading and, just all sorts of attention. And these need absolutely nothing. They just look beautiful all through the season with their foliage. And then when it's time to bloom, they bloom. And then I leave them standing, the tall ones, for a winter interest in these containers. And then I do have to come in the spring, and I'll take out about half of the plant and replace that with just fresh potting soil on the half that I took out, so that they don't get, too pot bound and have absolutely no nutrients. But they really need almost no attention. And you can see how small of a pot this one is living in. This pot might only be maybe 6 inches tall. It's a tiny little pot. And Sedum's doing great. So we're looking at this area that has 2 sedums growing in it, and this is in the garden that's right up against my house. And they're both, well, one's in a container and one's in this raised rock little bed here. And there's actually, you can see probably there's bird netting around the base to protect both the sedum and the petunia from the chipmunks and mice that love to live in the little rock bed. And I'm going to try and go above, and I have to use my zoom so you can see the sedum growing in there. And I'll go around to the other side so you can see that one. But we'll talk about this one first. And this is one that grows very much like autumn joy. And it gets pretty tall. And it's not autumn joy because I know the flower color is a little bit different. Let me see if I can get in here and you can see that it's opening. Oops, focus camera. Oh, no, we're not focusing. Maybe I have to zoom back out. Hold on a second there. Technical problems. Old people problems. You can see the flowers on this are much, much lighter. This could be autumn charm or it could be brilliant. Either way, very similar in growth to Sedum autumn joy in that upright habit, about the same height, just a different flower color. Very, very light pink. So what's going on here is this is growing in a container up against the fence, and what's cascading over it is a clematis called Snow in Summer, or Summer Snow, Paul Fargus. 3 names for one clematis. Summer Snow, we'll call it. So now I'm going to head in and show you up close that variegated sedum on the bottom of the ironwork right there. All right, so we're on the other side. You can see there's our clematis, and here's our little rock situation here. And this sedum that's growing in here, the variegated with the yellow flowers, Proven Winners has just done everybody a big favor that wants to grow sedums, and they have renamed a whole line of sedums that they're growing with a prefix. They all begin with the word rockin, so ROCK''N, and I'll put it on the screen. And then the second word will be like low or glow or mound. So this is Rockin' Low, and it's called Boogie Woogie, I think. And so that tells you how the sedum is going to grow. So if you bought Rockin' Mound Soft Cloud, you would know that that was going to grow in a mound. But this one's called Rockin' Low Boogie Woogie, and it has a beautiful variegation. It's been blooming for a really long time, and I think it looks beautiful other than the bird netting. I think this whole thing, whoops, I just kicked over the chicken that was behind me, the cement chicken. Oh, hello. I hope I didn't break you. One of my favorite little pieces of garden art next to the chicken feeder is this hen. Anyway, 2 sedums right in that little area in this garden, and I think both of them are beautiful, even though they're both very different. So let's head down toward the pink garden. Down the pathway, we'll head to what we affectionately call the pink garden because lots of things in here bloom pink. And you'll see the little pathway that leads in here. Oh, look at all these leaves on the ground. As these little stepping stones, and it is flanked by sedum as a border plant. So this is Sedum brilliant on this side, and then on the opposite side of the pathway, you have another Sedum brilliant, and behind it, a Sedum autumn joy. So they make up the edge. So it's foliage plants all summer long until now when they become the stars when they're about to bloom. And we're going to head down the pathway into this garden. And we're going to head to this container here that's planted with, it has a metal structure in here. And right now there's split second morning glory. And there's also a clematis that grows in here. You can see its seed heads. But what is the most beautiful thing is this sedum, which is caudicola. I forget I'll put its variety name in here. Its species is caudicola, and that's those beautiful red edges to the foliage, that blue-green foliage, and the best thing of all is this cascading habit. So over a little rock wall, this is fantastic. Here it's grown all around the edges of this container so it can cascade down. You can see there's another border sedum right underneath the container that it's cascading down into. It's about to flower, but this foliage is just spectacular. So right now this plant is a little bit hidden by, I'm going to swing to my left and you'll see all the bee balm that's about to be cut down. That was the highlight of this garden for the last month and a half, but now that's getting cut down and you'll be able to see this, especially now as it's starting to bud up and bloom. So this is a beautiful, beautiful sedum for containers because of its cascading habit. This is definitely a favorite of mine, and it's now again being sold under the Proven Winners sort of names that they're using. Rock and Grow, this one is, and it's Rock and Grow Lemon Jade, and Rock and Grow because it's a tall border variety, and this is a very, very robust sedum. It has really large, beautiful, beautiful blue leaves, and the name comes from the fact that it's going to bloom yellow. And this is in an area of my garden that there are a lot of things that bloom in this pale yellow. So that's why I chose it. But I'm glad I did because really, look how this plant is just beautiful. The foliage is beautiful. The flower heads are huge. And it's about to come into bloom in that beautiful, beautiful yellow color. So this is Rock and Grow Lemon Jade. This is another border variety, and it's also a very robust grower. Beautiful blue foliage, beautiful large leaves. This one is called Sedum Autumn Charm, and you can see these leaves here have some variegation to them, but they're really losing it. It was a variegated plant for quite some time, you can see, and now it's almost completely a solid color plant. That's because I haven't kept up with when the green stems come up. I haven't been keeping up with breaking them off. So pretty soon, I'm probably not gonna, I mean, it's not that I don't like the variegation. I just don't like plants that require all sorts of maintenance like that. So I'm gonna leave it. I might break off some of these that are really bluish green and see if I can get some of them to go back. But my experience, I used to grow one called Frosty Morn that was variegated, and the variegation is just a weaker part of the plant. And so over time, what happens is it just gets taken over by the green part of the plant, and it's a stronger growing plant that way. So I'm probably just going to let it keep going, but I'll sort of go on the side. You can see that's what it looked like when it was all variegated. But Anyway, it's not blooming yet, but that's Sedum Autumn Charm. Where I am in the garden right now, the lighting is not great, but I want to finish up and talk about this last sedum in a pot. And this one, I'm pretty sure is picolette. And it's a beautiful, it's got that glaucous blue foliage that gets reddish tinged. Some leaves get very red. I'll show you, some of them are on the blue-greener side, and then some of them are on the reddish-purpley side. It looks very much, and it grows very much like Sedum matrona, but there is a Sedum matrona right in this garden, right next to it, planted in the ground, and you can see how red the stems are on that. So Sedum matrona gets a very, very reddish tint to their stem, even when they're young. And I come high up here so you can see. That's Sedum matrona. And this one looks very much like it. It grows very much like it. And I think it's picolette. And that's some of that clematis summer snow that's coming down into it. This sedum is growing right next to this very cool little plant. And it's really hard to photograph this one, but I'm going to try. And this is called Spirea bullata. And this plant is cool. It is tiny. So I'm zooming in on the leaves and the flowers. And those little flower heads that haven't opened yet, they are probably the size of the top of a quilter's pin. And those are the pins that have the little balls on the top of them. So they're like a straight pin with a little colored ball that people use to quilt. So, I mean, really millimeters, really, really small. And the leaves the same. Tiny, tiny, tiny. These emerging leaves are all smaller than a dime. Like there's none of the ones that are coming out that are emerging that are bigger than that. And then some of the bigger ones might get to be 3/4 of an inch long. Beautiful. And it flowers, it's already flowered again once this season, and then I cut the flowers off, so it's in its second bloom, and it's got this beautiful dark sort of corrugated foliage. It's just a cute, adorable little plant. You don't see very often in many gardens, and I think it looks really great next to this sedum. All right, so ends the little tour of my garden sedums. This was some, but not all of the sedum that I use in my garden in different places as ground cover, container plants, border plants. I hope you maybe saw some new ones that you didn't know about, or a different use for one that you maybe are interested in growing. If you like these videos, please hit like and subscribe. And you can also follow me on my Instagram, which is also Garden in the Burrow. But hopefully we'll see you again in the next video. Happy gardening.